It is very good afternoon. It is Niall Boylan with you for the next hour or so. It's a very sad day today. I'm sure if you've been watching the news, particularly in the UK, let's keep our mind off the silly stuff from Ireland just for the moment. You can't avoid what's happening in Southport, or what happened yesterday afternoon. Well, yesterday morning, actually, just after 11 o'clock in Southport, where a man walked into what seemed to be like some sort of daycare centre where they were doing this Taylor Swift kind of celebration, and little kids between the age of 3 and 10 years of age, you know, dancing and singing and happy in the middle of summer. And some man walks in with, I believe, either a knife or a machete and decides that, they shouldn't live anymore. Well, according to the police, by the way, they said it's with great sadness today that we're here to advise you that 2 children have died as a result of the injuries sustained in the knife attack. 9 other children have been injured. 6 of them are critically ill. Also, those injured have serious stab wounds sustained during the attack, and 2 adults are also in critical condition and are being cared for in Alder Hospital. It is a shocking, shocking story. As of yet, there's loads of conjecture online as to who did it, why they did it, the culture or the race of the person that did it. All of that is kind of irrelevant right now at this very moment in time. We do know that a 17-year-old from the banks, as they say, in Southport, who was arrested in connection with the stabbing, and he remains in police custody and will be questioned in relation to the incident. That's all the information that's been given out at the moment. They're urging people, please, not to be mentioning names online. Now, I know you're all gagging to say something online. You're all gagging to say something. But the problem is, when that kind of thing happens, it can affect justice, as it would here in Ireland. Because then when you start putting somebody's name out online and lots of information about them before they even get into a courtroom, their barrister can claim that they can't get a fair trial. So that's the problem with naming people or outing people or saying things about people before they get into a courtroom. And then what we really want is justice. Now, what I've been looking at online in relation to the person who committed this crime, or a person who commits a crime like this, so many people have suggested that we should bring back things like the death penalty. Now, capital punishment in the Republic of Ireland was abolished in statute law back in 1990. Have been originally abolished, by the way, in 1964 for most offences, including ordinary murder. The last person to be executed in Ireland was a man called Michael Manning, hanged for murder in 1954, and all subsequent death sentences in the Republic of Ireland handed down in 1985 were commuted by the President on advice of the government. The 21st Amendment, as far as I remember, to the Constitution was passed in referendum only in 2001, by the way, which prohibits the reintroduction of the death penalty. In other words, we voted for that. We didn't want to reintroduce the death penalty into Ireland. Now, we cannot reintroduce the death penalty into Ireland as long as we're part of the European Union. So if we ever did want to reintroduce the death penalty, technically speaking, we'd have to leave the EU to do that. The Western world has more or less abolished the death penalty, with the exception of, say, the United States. As we speak, there's 2,213 people on death row. In America, 27 states across America have the death penalty, but there is no evidence as such that the death penalty makes a difference. For example, some of the states that have the highest numbers of people on death row also have the highest numbers of homicides. In other words, it hasn't really made a difference to the crime figures. But here's the thing. I know everybody wants a bit of retribution. And when I was asking people about this today, most people said, look, I'd gladly pull the trigger myself. But do I agree with the death penalty? Some people say no. Others say yes, a life for a life. I want to know what you think. Is it really a life for a life? Do you believe for heinous crimes like this crime, no matter who committed this crime, it doesn't matter that's who committed it for the moment, that's irrelevant. But no matter who committed this crime, do you believe it should be a life for a life? Let me know what you think. The number is 085 100 22 55. That's 085 100 22 55. Just to get the ball rolling, I want to speak to Ian O'Doherty, who's a journalist with the Irish Independent. Ian, good afternoon to you. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Ian, I kind of watched this yesterday, and I was watching it actually on GB News, and even the presenter in GB News was practically in tears reading out.
I saw it was that Martin Daubney yesterday.
Yes,
he was genuinely, and he's really good. But he was genuinely moved, as I think all of us were, because we're bombarded 24/7. It's like radiation from space. We're bombarded with information all the time. But every now and then something is just so heinous and so egregious that it just stops us all in our tracks. And I mean, Taylor Swift is the most famous person on the planet. And everybody knows kids who are obsessed with Taylor Swift. So immediately everybody is put in the position of that could be my kid, or that could be the kid who lives next door to me, or whatever, So there's an immediacy to it.
In fairness, she put out a statement today. She's put out a statement saying she's thinking of all the families and her condolences to the those who were lost in it. So she did put out a statement today. So she has been made aware of it, which is good of her to do that. I mean,
I'd say she'd probably do a bit more. In the same way that Ariana Grande actually became quite close with some of the victims of the Manchester Arena bombing when she was playing there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like some of the people you were saying that you were talking to earlier, put me in a room with him and a gun and I'm pulling the trigger, right? I'd go home, sleep like a baby, no qualms, no regrets whatsoever. But that is different to the state making them swing.
Sorry, I just want there's just breaking news has just come in my ear there. Another child has just died, so that means the death toll is now 3.
Jesus Christ.
And sadly, sorry, I did mention at the start there that in that particular story as well, I mean, as we speak, 9 children were stabbed and 7 are in a critical condition. So it is likely, unfortunately, that those numbers might rise. But sorry, I just wanted to bring that. So it is now 3 children are now dead.
Good God. And the thing is, I think like a lot of us, there's a horrible feeling it's going to get worse, But the thing is, as much as as an individual and as a human, I'm motivated in cases like this by passion and by a sense for justice and revenge and desire and stuff. The state, as far as I'm concerned, should be really above this. The state should be cold and implacable and irrational. And also, the state makes mistakes. Mm-hmm. Let's put it this way. I mean, if there was still the death penalty in England, the Birmingham 6 would have swung. The Guildford 4 would have swung. Right? So you have the whole potential for terrible miscarriages of justice. I mean, the most famous one in America was Gary Gilmore. And the thing that really swung me against the death penalty, and it shows the cynicism of politicians, is that when Bill Clinton was going up against George Bush, and he was governor of Arkansas, and Clinton was accused of being soft on crime by the Republicans. So he went back to Arkansas and he went, who's next on death row? And it was a guy called Ricky Ray Rector, who was mentally retarded. And so Clinton went, okay, give me the forms. So Clinton signed the forms, so they could execute Ricky Ray Rector, so Clinton would be tough on crime. And when they brought Rector his last meal, he didn't eat his dessert. And they said, why didn't you eat your dessert? And he went, I'm saving it for tomorrow.
Okay.
Like, he didn't have the mental comprehension to understand
that he was going to die. Yeah.
Yeah, and that broke my heart, and it stuck with me, and it made me hate Clinton forever, But the thing is, as I said at the top...
But I'm assuming, Ian, he did commit a horrible crime to end up in a situation where he was on death row, no matter what was wrong with him.
No, he killed a cop, right? But... Yeah. And I'm not, and my sympathy is with the victim or is with the families of the cops. But all I'm saying is that it's not as simple as you or me going into a room and shooting that bastard who killed those kids yesterday, as much as we'd like it to be, right? And that's how we can look at it as individuals. Because we're human and we're motivated by passion.
Yeah, but as in prison, I always ask people this question: what's prison about? Revenge, retribution, or rehabilitation? Right? And invariably, people would say rehabilitation, right? Because that's what the Irish Penal Service
I think it's retribution.
But if it is retribution, well, then isn't this the ultimate retribution? For example, in Japan, they let the victim's family decide what happens to the perpetrator. Whether they get the death penalty or life in prison or whatever it is. I suppose if we had a fairer system where you get the rest of your natural life in jail, people might think a little bit, easier about it. But when you're talking about the Irish prison system where you get 20 years for killing somebody, murdering somebody, and you got a situation where we have sentences in this country whereby if you kill 3 people, it doesn't make any difference. You still go to jail for the same amount of time because you carry out all the sentences, at the same time. So, I mean, we have a bonkers system when it comes to that. You can kill 4 people and you'll only go to jail for 20 years, 25 years max, probably.
Well, the idea of sentences to run concurrently is ridiculous because if you've killed 2 people and if you're cornered,
I mean, who was that guy in, was it Galway, that went in on Christmas Eve and raped the mother, set fire to the house and killed the mother, single mum and 2 kids? Do you remember that one? And there was 3 sentences for murder, 13-year sentences or whatever they were. Or I think 2 of them were for manslaughter, one of them was for murder. And they were all to run concurrently. So he was out of jail after 13 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's an obscenity. But the one thing I would say, and this is an argument against the death penalty that a lot of people who are pro the death penalty don't often look at. There is an argument that the death penalty is too good for them. It's too easy. It lets them away with it too much. Whereas actually, if you put them in a cell on their own for 23 hours a day, every day for the rest of their life, and they know that they're never getting out, if you basically put them into a supermax and it's life without parole, that is a far graver punishment than basically just killing them and giving them an easy way out. I mean, and let's put it this way: which do you think would have been a greater punishment? When Saddam Hussein was executed by the Iraqis after he was captured, he held himself with great dignity. There is footage of it.
That's right. I saw the footage. Yeah, being hanged.
He held himself with great dignity. The executioners were more afraid of him than he was of them, and the Saddam Hussein legend grew with his loyalists in the Ba'ath Party and the Baathists. Now, that's the death he wanted, and the Iraqis and the Americans gave it to him. Do you not think a bigger punishment would have been for him to be kept in a glass cage for the rest of his life where people could walk by laughing at him? Right? So if you're really talking about punishment, I'm not sure the death penalty is even necessary.
It would have to be, I mean, if you were ever even considering it, it would have to be reserved for the most heinous crimes. This being an example of a heinous crime. Like, for example, in some states in America, they outline the type of crime it has to be. For example, there was one particular case in Florida where this guy abducted a child, brought them out into a forest, raped the child, and then chopped the child up into little bits and put them into flower pots. I mean, that's the most heinous type of crime, or abduction of a woman, rape and murder. In other words, those type of crimes it has to be reserved for, not just your standard homicide. But I do see the logic behind it. I mean, if it was a family member of mine, as you said at the start, I'd personally pull the trigger. I would expect to go to jail for doing that, by the way.
That's the difference. Niall, that's the difference. If somebody kills my sister, I'm killing them, right? It's as simple as that. And I will happily admit to it. And I'll plead guilty, go, yeah, I did it, and I'll do it again. But the state, that's because we, again, to go back to what I was saying, as individuals, we're motivated by passions, and we do things. The state has to be more dispassionate than that. The state has to be more rational and implacable. And this is the one thing about the death, but like, America is my favourite country in the world. I think it's great. I think it's the shining city on the hill. And the death penalty is the greatest stain on America's national conscience because it puts it on the same moral par as the likes of Iran and China and Saudi Arabia. And the thing is, for the people who would like us to bring back the death penalty, do they want the Republic of Ireland to be on the same moral par as Iran, China, and Saudi Arabia?
It is surprising that they've never got rid of it in the Western world, so to speak. It is surprising that America have never got rid of the death penalty. It only is in 27 states. You know what I mean?
You know the singer Steve Earle?
Yeah.
I used to spend a fair amount of time with Steve when he lived in Ireland, and he was very involved because he's from Texas, and he's very against the death penalty because they've Huntsville and stuff, and they've a comparatively large turnover of people who are executed. And one of the things he was saying was that he can completely understand the family of a murder victim wanting the person killed. Right? He said, like, if it was, I remember saying at the time, if it was his sister or his daughter, he'd feel exactly the same way. He completely understands that. He's not some kumbaya kind of, idealist. But he said one of the interesting things, though, is when it's in the hours and days in the run-up to an execution outside Huntsville, the different sides gather, the pro-death penalty and the anti-death penalty. And he said the weird thing about the pro-death penalty people is that they're just ghouls. They just want to see somebody die. They've no relation to the case and stuff like that. And the death penalty has this capacity to bring out the worst of our nature. As much as all of us would quite happily waste that little bugger from yesterday, right? That's bringing out the worst of our nature. It's also the most understandable part of our nature, but it's the worst of it. And I don't want the state killing somebody in my name. I don't want that. If I was to kill somebody who harmed one of mine, I'm doing that in my name. I'm not doing it in the name of the state, and I don't want the state to do it in the name of me. I just think it's morally wrong. It's morally an absolute minefield. As I said, if they still had it in England, the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4 would have hung.
I know there's always going to be the cases where they get it wrong, and I've spoken to people who've been on death row. I've spoken to people, by the way, an innocent man who was 26 years, Nick Yaris. I interviewed him here on the show.
All right, yeah.
And Nick spent 26 years on death row.
He's a fascinating guy, actually.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating, and for something he didn't do. Now, the thing about it is, the likelihood of that happening nowadays in relation to modern evidence and the way we use, DNA and everything else is less likely than it would have been 40 or 50 years ago. So the possibility of people being wrongfully convicted, and again, if you were bringing in the death penalty, of course, you would have to make sure it's for very serious crime where you have indisputable evidence. It wouldn't be kind of, something that's based on a confession, because of course we all know what happens with confessions. They can be beaten out of people. So realistically, it would have to be indisputable evidence. So I think in those cases, some people would say maybe yes. But look, you said not in your name, and I understand it. And as I mentioned already, Ireland, we did vote in a referendum not to reintroduce the death penalty back in 2001. It's only as recent as that, by the way. And to reintroduce the death penalty in Ireland, we would have to leave the European Union, of course, because it's against European law. So I don't think that's going to be happening very soon. But it's just on a point of principle. I'm just curious how people think about it. Listen, Ian, I appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank you very much indeed.
Fair play, Niall. You're the only man I know who can make me sound like I'm the liberal hippie in the conversation. So, well done.
I appreciate it. Listen, Ian, thank you very much indeed.
Take care, cheers.
Of the Irish Independent, Ian O'Doherty. We'll chat to Ian again, I'm sure. But I want to know how you feel about the death penalty. Now, the reason we're talking about it, as I said, is the latest news coming in now. A third child has just died. And just to mention, there was 9 other children were stabbed yesterday in Southport. 6 of them are in a critical condition. Well, actually 5 now, because obviously one of those in a critical condition has just died. So 5 more are in a critical condition, and also 2 adults who tried to save the children or protect the children. I don't know whether they were teachers or that were there at the time or whatever. They're also in a critical condition. So, there's a possibility those numbers could rise over the next day or two. The individual responsible for this is 17 years of age. He is in police custody, and he's been questioned about the incident. And again, we ask people not to speculate online who he is, and what he's done. We know what he's accused of doing. Let me go to Tommy. Tommy, hi, how are you doing?
Good morning, Niall. How are you doing?
Tommy, when you hear of a crime like this, it is the most heinous crime. We had an incident here last year ourselves where a man who, and I don't want to go too much into it, but because obviously it's going through the courts at the moment, but took a knife to children as well. Children are the most vulnerable in society. Or certainly the elderly as well. When you hear of a crime like this, do you think that kind of crime warrants the death penalty?
Of course. I've been pro-death penalty for a long time. Ever since I started thinking about it in my mid-20s.
Are you on speakerphone there, Tommy? You're just a little bit low.
Hold on, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead. Come.
Yeah, I'd be pro-death penalty. The reason for that is that life is precious and it's pure. And the only reason to show people that life is precious and pure is when they don't realise that you take their life. I hate when people start talking about the word revenge. It's called justice. And for me, like for anyone to see what happened yesterday and not be able and not have a system where to relieve those parents of homicidal thoughts for the rest of their lives, it won't relieve them of all their struggles. But it's in some way closes the book. To compare ourselves to China and Saudi Arabia with the death penalty is ridiculous. We will never be compared to those countries because we are morally different than those countries. And
but are we morally different? If we reintroduce the death penalty, does it make us morally different? Are we just morally the same then?
Well, it depends how we use it. Life is there to be protected. Mm-hmm. If you say you're pro death penalty, but you're against the death penalty because one, innocent people die and you feel like it's cruel, well then you're a pacifist, because then you're against World War II. Well, then you're against the Civil War in this country where we were fighting for freedoms and innocent people.
Well, I think on a point of principle, everybody, normal people are against war. Nobody wants war. I mean, unfortunately, throughout history, war has been necessary in some situations, but everybody's against the idea of it. Nobody wants to see people die or cannon fodder.
Well, what I'm saying is that death penalty is necessary.
I mean, if it was a member of your family, Tommy, right, that sadly was killed or whatever, and I hope it never happens, but was killed, in such a fashion or in this kind of way, would it not satisfy you more to know that person would spend the rest of their life? I don't mean like a 20-year sentence as we do in Ireland. Let's change the justice system, but spends the rest of their life, in Mountjoy in a cell, slopping out every day or whatever it is,
No, because every weekend or every floor, I'd be thinking about climbing over the wall and trying to get to him. You need closure on certain situations, or an attempted closure. And anyone that says that a member of their family was murdered, and you wouldn't want the person.
Oh, you would want them killed, of course you would. But that's just our emotions. And as Ian rightly said, give me a gun and I'll put the bullet in them. You know what I mean? Absolutely, everybody feels that way. But
we're letting the justice system do it. We're introducing it to the justice system. I'm not going to do it.
But I mean, we know that killing people is wrong, but yet we're saying that it's okay for a state to do it, state-sanctioned killing. As they did in the guillotine in France, for example. We used to use hanging here in Ireland at one stage.
But no, we already have it. we have abortion, and now we're trying to get euthanasia in. The death penalty is there. There's two realities in the world. There's good and there's evil. And evil has to be fought by all means possible. And if you bring in the death penalty and it works as a deterrent, and like you said, putting someone in prison for 90 years is cruel. Well, hold on a second. If the death penalty is cruel and prison is cruel, what should we do? Should we just let them off the streets?
I'm not suggesting it's cruel, because if somebody, kills a load of children or whatever, there's nothing cruel about killing them. I don't believe there's anything cruel about it. But I believe as a society, we're probably better than that. Are we?
No. Well, as a society, we have to fight evil. We do it all the time. We go to war for good over evil, don't we? That's why we fought Hitler.
Stay there, Tommy, just for a second. Don't go over there.
We went to fight Hitler. I didn't hear anyone say, we're not pacifists. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in. And if you think that it's a deterrent or not, for me, the death penalty there is to bring some sort of closure and justice, not revenge, justice to relieve the families of homicidal tendencies.
Okay. Stay there just for a second, Tommy. Let me just bring Bernie in as well. Bernie, hi, how are you?
I'm grand. How are you now?
I'm grand, but I'm really upset by this case since I saw it yesterday afternoon for the first time, and it's just getting worse as the hours go on, as another child dies, which is horrendous.
It's horrific. I can't even believe it. You can't even comprehend it. Mm-hmm. There you are, send your children in for a summer class, and they don't come back. I can't even get my head around it, to be honest. But I've watched the death penalty and all these. I've watched all that. Does it work? Has murders reduced?
No.
Has this kind of crime stopped?
No.
No, it hasn't. So what do we do? Do we leave it up to the parents of these children today to say, I want that man killed? Is it up to the parents of the person who has been, completely destroyed by this crime? Is it up to them to make the decision? And we respect that.
That's what they do in Japan. They let the victim's family just decide what happens, when a person is found guilty.
Because at the end of the day, does it give you any closure? What does it achieve? Like, this guy is, an absolutely disgusting human being, and he has no soul. He's 17 years of age. You're never going to change him. He's gone already. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the answer is, Niall, to be honest. I really don't. Do we send, what is the outcome? What can you see? What would work? Castrating him, openly leaving him out in the middle of the street, let people decide what they want to do. I don't know anymore.
Well, see, that's what they do in some countries in the world, which seems quite barbaric. They put people out in the middle of the street and let everybody just stone them to death or bury them or burn them or whatever they want to do with them. They do that in some countries too. But does that achieve it?
No,
that makes it just as bad then, doesn't it?
Yeah, you were supposed to protect human life, and it's supposed to have in all of us some form of forgiveness for some wrongs. Like, we're supposed to find it in ourselves to forgive somebody. I don't know how you would forgive somebody for that, I'll be honest.
Well, you can't.
Seeing them dead, would seeing them dead, is that the answer? Your pain is never going to go, regardless of whether they're alive.
Yeah, but Tommy's argument is that he will spend, if it's happened to a family member of his, he would spend the rest of his life wanting to get over the wall of the prison to kill them. So it would always be in his mind, where at least if they were dead, it'd be closure for him.
But there's no closure on this. There is no closure. These parents are never going to get closure.
It's a fair, sorry, Tommy. That's a fair point. I mean, if you've got a family member murdered, you don't ever get closure. You think about it, it's a death sentence for you.
I know, but
life sentence. Sorry.
The sad reality is it's about the community in general. It's about the community in general. Justice is there for all. And to say the death penalty mightn't be a deterrent to future crimes, but it's definitely justice for the victims that are nobody can apologise to the children. Nobody can bring them back. So we have to put a message out to society that life is precious, and we will protect life as far. We will kill to protect life. It's basically what we're saying, and I know it might sound cruel, but that's why we go to wars. Evil.
We will kill to protect life. That's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? So we will kill to protect life.
No, that's why we killed the Nazis.
But we will kill to protect life. Yeah.
It's this man as evil as a Nazi.
Mm. Well, whoever is responsible for killing these children is evil. There's no doubt about that.
We kill terrorists and we celebrate. So.
Well, we don't. I mean, what they do is they send in, armies and squads to kill terrorists.
Well, listen, I also.
Yeah. So sorry, Bernie. Go ahead. That's not considered to be justice. That's war.
Would you remove both their arms? Would you remove their legs? Would you leave them with ulceration? Do you visit some of the worst plagues on the person? Do you know some of the things that are like horrific? I take his arm, take their arms off, take an eye out. I don't know. We've watched all this over the centuries, and crime is still there. People are still doing things against each other. Like, how do we change that? I don't think we can. But the justice system, will the parents be happy with it? No parents will be happy with anything that's meted out to that man. Nobody's ever going to find that's great, he's down now in the prison for life. It's never going to give them back their child. It's never going to give them peace. So, as a society, what do we do?
Look, I think evil is also can be spread throughout. I think a mindset of and we don't know if this guy was a terrorist or not, but if he goes to jail for whatever, 30, 40 years, what's stopping him from spreading his ideology to other people, other prisoners that just want to, go on with their lives? Evil has to be stopped. Evil has to be stopped. And sometimes people are just gone too far. And like you said, it's probably more cruel to put him in prison for 80 years. End his life. Put a message out there. If you come to a country in Western society and you hurt children, there is a chance that penalty.
With respect, by the way, from what I believe, he was born in England.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, okay. So you just said if you come to a country, he didn't come to the United Kingdom. He was born there.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
from what I believe,
it's not about a deterrent. It's about bringing justice is there for the victims of crime to give them some sort of ease and comfort and move on with their lives. And we can't speak for the families from yesterday. We can't do that. Well, I know the closest culture to us that has the death penalty is America. Whether you agree with it or not, families go to the execution.
But it's not about agreeing with it. The whole purpose of punishment and justice is to stop people committing crimes or deter others from committing those crimes. And in the states where the death penalty, is instituted, they don't have a reduction in homicide, because that's obviously what it's given out for, homicide and the most serious homicide. So they don't have a reduction. So it has made statistically no difference to crime. Stay there for a second, Tommy. Let me just go to John. John, hi. How are you doing?
I'm not so bad. Yourself?
Good. John, there you go. Tommy says, kind of eye for an eye and, give him some level of closure because he'll always want to kill the person anyway. So why not?
Well, someone that's 100%, and my farm, I'm pro-life, I'm anti-abortion, right? I cannot in any way endorse the death penalty, right? Because I'd be totally hypocrite then. If I'm anti-abortion and I'm pro the death penalty, that would make me a complete hypocrite, which I don't think I am, however will be. No, the unborn has committed no crime on anyone. They can they'll just kill murdered.
I was going to say you wouldn't really be a hypocrite because as you talk about murder of the unborn child hasn't committed a crime.
No, but the thing is that to me, when I hear this term, the life imprisonment, right, especially here in this country, we know they're not going to do life. When I hear that term, the judiciary and so-called politicians that represent this country in the public should be sat down with the law society, like, and the Minister of Justice and every other player, and trash testing it once and for all that when you do get a life sentence, it means that you die inside. And I don't want to see you mixing with the general population. I don't want to see you, getting a 5-star menu. I don't want to see you using the gym. I don't want you looking at TV or Sky Sports. I don't want you to have a radio on yourself. I want you in total isolation. I've no visitors whatsoever. Only be checking by the guards a few times a day. I want you to die in your thoughts, and eventually your physical body will die.
And that sounds great if you're living in America and you're in a penitentiary. But here in Ireland, prisons don't work like that, and you've got all the do-gooders of society that say they demand. Well, the do-gooders, it's not just the politicians, the do-gooders of society, Amnesty International and all these, will demand they have good facilities.
They're the greatest hypocrites on the planet, because they're not a bunch of pro-abortionists. The Amnesty International can go fly a fucking kite for all I care, because it's the people of the country it should be served, and they're not being served by the politicians. We've had several ministers of justice over the last 20 years, 3 of them women, and including the current one, who's an absolute fucking disaster, right? And there is no deterrent there. There's a horrific case going through Cork courts. They'll be found guilty this morning. They will be sentenced after dinner. And for a few that are up inside in the graveyard of all places, like in broad daylight.
Okay, well, don't be discussing an ongoing case. Anyway, right, come on. It's still ongoing.
It's done and dusted anyway, but it's just they haven't been sentenced yet. But the thing is, right, it's life imprisonment, and you die inside, and you make it as miserable as you possibly can. Obviously, the knee-jerk reaction, if it was my niece, or my sister, which I haven't got, but if I had one, was raped and butchered, and I could get that guy, I'd probably have to park my pro-life thing then, but then again, as the other lad said earlier on, I would have to pay the price then when the guards would come knocking at the door, and I would be the guy doing life then.
John, see, when people hear a crime like this, one of the UK, look, obviously we were visited with a crime like this last year in Ireland too.
Yeah, we had it here in the streets of Dublin,
yeah, but thankfully that young girl survived.
And don't forget the 2 guys up in Sligo, they were trial there and Dinton, and they were disemboweled while they were still alive. Can you imagine the fucking pain of that? And then beheaded. That bastard should never see the like of it, but he will. He'll be out in 20 years. Okay, but here's the thing. So this guy walks into a play school, essentially, a little small acting school for 3-year-olds to 10-year-olds. You know what I mean? And basically goes around, indiscriminately killing people. Children, aiming for children. The reason the 2 adults are in critical condition is because they tried to stop him and save the children. Exactly.
Obviously he was reasonably good at what he was doing. When you think about this, it's a shocking story. Those numbers are probably going to rise over the next few hours or few days because there's a few more people.
I don't want this to sound completely insensitive. No one is going to say next now, right? Are we then putting the children, which is horrific, like that type of murder on a higher plane than the 80-year-old woman that's living on her own, that's beaten unmercifully to death? They're
both vulnerable in society and they're both heinous crimes. But I would reserve the death penalty for the most serious of crimes. And beating a woman to death, at 80 years of age or whatever it is, that would be serious in my mind, right? My view. But mass murder, serial killers, or certainly walking into a school and indiscriminately killing people, children.
Well, it came up there a while ago about the wars and everything. Richie Sunak, Biden, Macron. All these characters, and Ben Netanyahu in Israel, they should all be behind bars for the rest of their life. And everybody that's supplied the arms that have massacred children in Gaza, they should all be behind bars for life. They're all mass murderers as well. They're just as guilty of killing children as that guy did yesterday.
Okay. Well, hang on. That's a fair point. Stay there for a second, John. Let me go to Jessica as well. Jessica, hi. How are you?
Hiya.
Getting back to the death penalty in relation to that crime that's being committed, of course, on the children in Southport in the UK. Do you believe it's warranted for people like that, the death penalty?
Well, the first thing I said when you went live was, and I'm probably going to get called a sicko for this because I was last time you talked about the death penalty. That scumbag from Southport deserves to be hung, drawn and quartered publicly. Mm-hmm. He's nothing but a scumbag. Prison would be too good for him. Why use taxes to keep them alive? Just wipe them off the face of the earth. Is death not good for no one?
Yeah, but is death not too good for him sometimes too? Some people say death is too good for him. In other words, some people would say when you think about it logically, if somebody did something to your family member, you'd prefer maybe to think of them having a long, slow, painful death over years of time in a 6-foot cell.
And that's what should happen to them, but not for prison, because we all know what the prisons are like. It's like a little holiday camp. Prison isn't hard. What needs to be done is that pardon my language, these sick fucks need to be tortured, need to be put into so much pain that they'll be begging for death.
But that kind of sounds like Guantanamo Bay or something in America. And I watched a good movie.
I know it sounds harsh, but I don't care, because to me these are nothing but sick fucks, and they don't deserve to breathe air.
Yeah, sorry, John. I mean, John, I know a lot of people feel like Jessica, they don't deserve to be breathing the same oxygen.
But this idea, like, of talk to him on a daily basis, whatever, like, I mean, who's going to do that? Like, I mean, it's not within me to do that. It's not within you. It's not within Jessica. No, when it comes down to the possible isn't enough. So that's all right. Like, you have to farm that out to somebody else, then that's almost like, I mean, kind of a zombie type character, like, has no empathy, no feeling whatsoever. Has no problem dishing out extreme violence. Like,
you'll have no problem finding somebody. That many years ago, of course, when we had the hanging in this country and we had death penalty in this country, they had no problem finding people to do it. The same with pulling the lever for the guillotine in France. They had no problem finding people to do it.
As Eno Darty referred to earlier on there, like, I mean, if the death penalty had been in, the Guildford 4, Paulton and the rest of them would be all swung on ropes. They'd be dead long ago.
Well, but I do believe that justice and policing has changed since then. I mean, we're talking about the death penalty for crimes, and you would have to emphasise that it is crimes that we know beyond any reasonable doubt the person did it with DNA evidence. It would have to be solid. I'm not talking about some sort of flimsy case. Like, for example, we had, I'll use Graham Dwyer's case, right, as an example, right?
Yeah.
That case was built on speculation. The same with the other lad in Sora that kills his wife, Joe O'Reilly. It was it was based on triangulating of masts and mobile phones, and there's been appeals in relation to those cases. You couldn't have the death penalty for those kind of cases because there's that 1% of element of doubt, right? It's 1%. They're guilty as fuck, right? Pardon the language. But there's a 1%, right? So what I'm saying is it would have to be reserved for cases where that there is absolutely no doubt the person committed the crime, i.e. you have video evidence, you have witnesses, you have everything, and the person practically admits it. So it would have to be for those kind of cases.
That would have to be brought in by legislation, because otherwise, like, I mean, if you just left it, I mean, up to the judges on the day, what you would have done, you would have very intelligent barristers and lawyers, like, I mean, saying, well, they'd be quoting cases left, right and centre, and they say, why should my client die, when A, B and C got off?
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, what do you think of what people say, that mistakes have been made in the past and innocent people have been sentenced to death for something they didn't do?
I'm sure there have been cases of innocent people dying, but then you see the actual cases of, like, the scumbag in Southport, who does deserve to be in the chair and getting the needle.
The needle. You'd probably do more than that, mind you. You seem to have a vengeance.
Well, I would, but I'd be getting called a sicko, because, for God forbid, I'm the one who says that all these people should be wiped off the face of the planet. But look at your man who's competing in the Olympics in the Dutch team.
Oh yeah, he's a sex offender. He raped a child.
A convicted child rapist. He's allowed to compete. He deserves to be drowned in the sand that he's volleyballing on. He doesn't deserve to be alive.
No, I would agree with you. I don't understand the logic behind that, but there's another argument that people say, well, he served his time, he gets a second chance at life and all that kind of thing.
Hate his timing, Eric. If you rape a child, you deserve to be fucking shot in the face and wiped off the planet.
Stay there for a second. Let me go to Declan. Declan, hi, how are you?
Hello there, Niall. Sorry for...
Jessica doesn't hold back. Yeah, shot in the face and wiped off the planet.
Yeah, but I think there's a very big point that you're missing. You have to differentiate these particular crimes, and that bloke didn't get up in the morning and just decide to swanny down there and commit that war crime. The same as the war crime that was committed in Parnell Square, and the same as the war. Just hold on for a second.
Hold on, Jessica.
The same as the war crime that was committed in Sligo. Now, those blokes are listening to internet radio where somebody, probably around there, where somebody is telling them that the West is the enemy, and they're getting up and committing war crimes because they see themselves at war. Now, the government in Britain and Ireland and so on, their first duty is to protect the people. I'm living beside your place in Edenmore, and I walked through it today looking at all the kids playing happily. Went into Raheny Library. They have a toddlers group.
Oh, I haven't been there in years since I was a child. Yeah.
Now, it's great to see those kids enjoying themselves, but the government now has to protect all of these. And what are they doing? They're sticking 1,000 potential rapists on the Malahide Road. No vetting, and if they get into trouble, they get interpreters and all the rest of it, right? Now,
yeah, but hold on. We're talking about the case in the UK, right? And you're making an assumption based on stuff you've seen online that this individual who was arrested is only in Britain a short time. That's not true, because they've already come out to say now he was born in Britain.
About him. I said nothing about him.
Okay.
I'm generalising that you had somebody on going on about Saddam Hussein and nothing about the rape of Abir Qasim Haza al-Janabi, a 10-year-old gang raped by the 101st Airborne Division of the US Army who had no business being in Iraq. Right? Now, I'm trying to look at the general picture. The general picture is the state in Ireland, in Britain, has to defend the people. We should be able to walk down the road. Children should be able to play without being slaughtered. And clearly, in the Parnell Square and in Stockport and in France, where that young Catholic boy intervened, it's not happening. So the question is, what can be done about it? Now, if somebody is put up on a capital charge in England, in Ireland, in France, who doesn't speak the language, they'll have interpreters, they'll have free legal aid, which is a big scam, and all the rest of it. And the case will drag on for years, as it does in America, with appeals. So and we're not America. America has a libertarian tradition, so there are lots of them have guns and rifles and AK-47s and all the rest of it, right? We don't have any of that. So we're in a position in England, in Stockport, where these people, both English and Irish, and incidentally, I put Larry Murphy and people like him in the very same category as this character in Stockport, but we're defenceless.
So the point is, you agree with the death penalty in certain circumstances?
No, I agree. Sorry, I say that the government in Britain and in Ireland should protect the people. That's their primary job. And I also say, because of circumstances like we see in Stockport...
So it's actually Southport, but go on,
They're not doing it. So that's now how to do it. Well, I
know. But by the way, everybody wants prevention rather than cure. There's no Declan. I don't think there's a person in this country who doesn't want prevention instead of cure. Everybody doesn't. The free legal aid people are making a fortune out of it. The whole refugees. I agree with you. And I, by the way, during my election campaign, I talked about this on RTE, although I was shut down on numerous occasions. And I said the primary objective of any government is to protect its citizens. That's their job, right? And I don't disagree with you. And people shouldn't be entering Ireland with no documentation. We've no idea who they are, if they have criminal records, all that kind of stuff, right? But again, I understand, and there's a potential for people to be criminals or commit crimes. But let's go back to what we're actually talking about. What we're actually talking about is a horrible, horrible crime that was committed yesterday. At the moment, there's 3 children dead. Those numbers are possibly going to rise over the next 24 hours. We've an individual, 17 years of age, for whatever reason. That will all come to light, I'm sure, over the next few days as to why he committed this crime or the motive behind this crime. I think we all have a good guess what the motive is. But anyway, what the motive behind this crime is, should somebody like him face the death penalty?
Well, I think he should be tried, number one, in a no jury court and held in an open air prison in Stockport and let him take his chances in there with the other inmates who might have a thing or two. I don't care about people like him. I care about the people who motivated him to do what he did. They are the biggest threat, whether he lives or dies, like Myra Hindley. Remember Myra Hindley?
Yeah.
I try to forget about people like that because they're nightmares. You to think of Myra Hindley or the Baby P case or the child sex grooming in Rochdale, it does my head in, right? But the government and everybody feeding off the trough in Rochdale and with the Baby P case, and they've got a case to answer. So if the British decided to hang a lot of them, all of them, I wouldn't,
You wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Yeah. Okay, so in other words, what you're saying to me in a very roundabout way, Declan, is prevention is better than cure. But when the cure does happen, or when we do have the symptoms of not having the prevention in the first place, you do agree with the death penalty. Okay, stay there, Jessica and Declan. Let me just go to Sarah. Sarah, hi. How are you?
How's it going, Niall? It's horrible, isn't it?
It's a horrendous story. It affects everybody, even thinking about it, because we all, most of us had children, and you can imagine these kids were 3 to 10 years of age. You can imagine them off on a nice summer's day, singing their, Taylor Swift songs and dancing around, and some guy walks in with a knife or machete or whatever the hell it was, and just, decides to indiscriminately kill as many as he can. It's just shocking.
It's shocking. Like, you only think of things that you see in the film. That's the only thing I can think of. But you remember that guy there you shot was a 69 people, and he's doing a 21-year sentence for it.
Who's this?
What is?
Oh, Anders Breivik. Are you talking about? No. Who are you talking about?
Yeah, your man Anders.
Anders Breivik.
Yeah, is he still alive? Yeah.
Yeah, he's still alive. Yeah, he got a sentence. I can't remember what the sentence was. I think it was longer than that, but I think he did get a good sentence.
No, but Jesus, Niall, he didn't get much of a sentence for that crime. He's going to get out, and now he's actually going to court saying he's depressed and he's isolated in prison. And now you have a younger child there going around murdering other children.
Don't. By the way, this is pissing me off in the press over the last 24 hours. A 17-year-old child has been arrested. He's not a child. He's 17. He's practically a man. Would you stop with the child business?
Niall, but he is. But come here, right?
He's legally a minor because he's under 18. His birthday could be tomorrow, and he could be lying about his age anyway. But here's the thing. He's legally a minor because he's under 18. He's not stop calling him a child. He knows what he was doing. You know what I mean?
Listen, whatever the case may be, he did what he did, right? Nobody in their right mind would just do that, for starters. And I don't know what sort of justice can be done about that, because it's not morally right what he done. I don't believe in the death penalty, because the likes of that, it'd be sort of too, you know what I mean?
Too quick, too easy.
Justice, would it?
Why, you think it's too easy?
Yeah, I really think it would be way too easy. And then if he is left in a prison, who's not to say that he'll get out in some time? Who's not to say that someone else in the prison is going to get a hold of him and Declan's quite happy with that idea. Declan believes that he should be put into an open prison with, the rest of the inmates. And you know what the inmates think of people who hurt children. He won't last long. Sure, Ian Huntley was only in a few weeks and he got a good hiding, Yeah, but I don't believe in, any of that stuff. I really don't know what the answer is. I mean, in fairness to what Declan said, why should we feel any sympathy for him at all? Even if the inmates did decide to give him a hiding. So why would we feel sorry for him? Okay, right, why would you feel sorry for him? I'm not feeling sorry for him, Niall, but you know what I mean? You think if you had a 17-year-old child and just grew up and went out and done something like that. Child. And if there was whatever, a 17-year-old teenager, young adult. Yeah. If that was your young adult again, how would you feel? If he was 13 or 14 and they were using the term child, I could live with it. But he's 17. No, I wouldn't do it. Because we had 12 and 13-year-olds in this country killing young girls. Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? You can't and I had no sympathy for those animals either. You know what I mean? I know, but what do you do? And how do you deal with it? And that's going to go on. In another, probably not going to say a month or two, but we're going to hear something like this happening again and again and again and again. By the way, I do hope they name him, because if you remember rightly, they named the two children who were responsible at the time for killing Jamie Bulger, and they were only 12 and 13 years of age. They were treated as adults and trialed as adults. So I'm assuming that I would like. They did give his name out. The name was released. Oh, who? Of the guy yesterday?
Yeah, and
no, they haven't.
You were told not to mention it on media.
Yeah, no, the name.
I think you even said it as well.
The name is on social media, but the police haven't released the name. I mean, to be fair, that name on social media could be wrong. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't advise people to spread that name around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so yes or no? You don't agree with the death penalty per se.
I don't listen, Niall. I believe if that really was a member of my family, I'd say to myself, wherever about myself, I would go out and commit murder. I'd do a life sentence if anyone ever hurt my family. But then, when you hear these horrific crimes, you think of the most horrendous. Now, I would mentally torture, the things that you do to a person, but would you actually do it?
Well, stay there for a second, because Angela. Well, hang on, Angela. You agree with the death penalty, but would you do it yourself?
I would.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I can tell you, put him in front of me tomorrow, and they say, "There, go, do it."
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, these are kids. I don't have kids myself.
But does that make you?
But I mind them.
How does that make you better than him?
Well, if you did that, Angela, then you won't be able to look after your family. You know what I mean?
But I don't care. No. If they turn around and said, "There you go, you can do it, no problem," right? Nothing will happen. Go and do it. Oh, I'd kill him.
I'm sure we'd all do that. I think we would.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what should be done, because I don't think the other thing is, you were saying he's a child. Okay, you're saying he's a child. Okay, so if he's tried as a child, okay, or if he's tried like those other two bastards that killed Jamie Bulger and all that, are they going to hide him when he comes out? Is he going to have a new identity to go off and have a fabulous life? Because I guarantee that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to say something now, and I swear to God, I don't care what anybody calls me. If I hear fucking mental illness to do with this, you can all go and shite.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. To the British justice system, the most, I think, I'll get someone to check it out, but I think the most he can get in jail is 25 years with no parole, right? Similar to the Jamie Bulger case, John Venables and what was his name? The other fellow, Thompson. Right? Yeah, Robert Thompson.
Yeah, Robert Thompson.
Okay, so the most he gets is 25 years, and you are right, when he's released from jail, most likely, like Ian Huntley's girlfriend, Maxine Carr, he will be given a new identification, new ID, the whole lot to protect him, and relocated and all that kind of carry on. So he's only 17, so he'll be out of jail, most likely. If indeed he's convicted of this crime, which I'm sure he will, he'll be out of jail by the time he's probably 45.
Good, and I hope he comes out, and I hope somebody finds him, and I so hope somebody slits his throat slowly, cuts his balls off slowly, and cuts his hands off, and tortures the fucker. My language now today is going to be appalling to do with this, because that bastard went in and is already after taking 3 beautiful lives. 3 beautiful lives. And I like that now. There's another few I'd say will come with critical conditions. And you want him at the age of 40 to be able to come out and do it again? Look at Robert Thompson. Isn't it Robert Thompson? How many crimes has he committed since he came out?
Yeah, he went back to jail for downloading child porn. Yeah.
Yeah, and other stuff as well. And come here, I know where he is, and I'm not saying it, but you'd be very shocked if you knew where he was.
I've seen the image, I've seen the pictures on Twitter. Mm-hmm.
No. You'd be very shocked.
Okay, well, but don't say any more than.
I'm not. That's why I'm saying I'm not. But you know what? I'll tell you, that bastard yesterday. Give him 5 years in a cell with bread and water and let him slowly die. That's what I would do.
Sarah, there you go. You don't agree with that, Sarah, I assume.
I don't agree with it, but I do say, I don't think he will get away with it. I think something will happen to him accidentally. And I think that's the type of death that's going to happen to him. But,
no.
See, don't get me wrong. I mean, look, everybody feels like Angela inside. We all feel like that, particularly if it's someone that we love, or we talk about children or elderly people or people who are vulnerable in society. But you see, Angela, we've grown up. Western society is meant to have grown up that it's not an eye for an eye anymore, and we don't, in other words, what you're telling me is that the state should murder this guy because he murdered children. Yeah. And I suppose what you're saying then essentially is that the state's allowed to murder people. Does that make
but
sense?
What is justice? What is the justice like? Like, what is the law? What is justice?
The justice is there is never going to be a chance for that mental illness fucker to go and do it again.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So, like, the justice system is all screwed then. Because if he does get in, and it is the truth, you're going to get people in there going, like, as you say, they all hop on this, that, and the other, the bandwagon, suffering with this, suffering with that, getting help, getting support. And people do get out of prison early. People, like, you do see it every day. You have people up in, I'm not going to say it, but, like, I know people that are working there, people that are looking after these people in these places for murder. And I know there's actually murderers that's actually walking around because of their rage and there's no places, like, and this is in our country, like. So, like,
and what I've told you before, I've told Niall before, sorry for interrupting you there. A lot of people don't understand why when you go into prison, you get a third off immediately, right? The reason you get a third off immediately is they don't recognise weekends. Okay? So your years are from Monday to Friday. That's why you get a third off, straight away. If you get 7 years, you're only going to do at most 4.5, maybe.
Yeah, but now, hang on. But in cases of murder, and particularly with heinous crimes like that, I know in Britain, for example, I'm not too sure about Ireland so much, but the judge will turn around and say, with no grounds for probation, with no time off. Yeah. So do you remember that geezer there recently who killed the girl in Edinburgh, or wherever it was, and he put her body into a barrel with lime and all that? Do you remember that guy? So the judge in that case said, unfortunately, I can't give you any more than, I think it was 22 years at the time. 22 years. But what I can say is there will be no reduced time and there will be no probation or no opportunity for probation.
And that's what should be done. But, well, no, you should get, life should mean life. But we know.
Well, I agree. Now, I mean, I do believe in the American system where you can sentence to somebody for a heinous crime like this to the rest of your natural life.
Life, yeah.
And
then life over again and life over again.
Yeah, well, actually, I've seen those double life sentences. That means that if you die and you're reincarnated, you'll be taken straight out of kindergarten and put back into jail.
There was a man that got that.
But people have got double and triple life sentences, but that's only for mass murder. But they're going to jail for the rest of their life anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Niall,
yeah.
Like, Niall, I don't mean that, like, you get found guilty and next month you're, do you know what I mean, you're killed. I don't mean that. Give him 5 years. Give him 5 years of hell. You know,
in a Mexican prison.
I know. At the moment, it's easier for prison officers the way the prisons are run. It is a lot easier for the prison officers, but they're fucking holiday camps. And you know what? A couple of years ago, I finally got to see Alcatraz. It was always my dream to go and see Alcatraz, and I was walking around Alcatraz, going, "Yep,
that's a prison.
This is what a prison should be."
Okay, we'll stay there. We'll stay there for a second, Angela. Let me just go to Tony. Tony, hi, how are you?
Niall, how are you? I'm absolutely so saddened by that news. It was unbearable. As you know yourself, I have lovely little grandchildren, and it's so. I remember after the last time the stabbing in Parnell Square, my daughter was on the phone to me the following day. And she says, "Oh, Dad, I'd be in town. What if that happened to her?" And I said, No. I said, it was isolated. I said, the chances of it happening. Yeah, but just like, what is the chances of it happening in Ireland? It's big, isn't it?
Well, it seems more common across Europe. It's happened a few times across
Europe.
But
that's what I'm saying. Like, now it's not. It's going to happen in Ireland. It's not a case of this. It's a case of when. And it's a horrendous thing for parents to have in their mind that they can be somewhere in a playground, in a creche.
Well, it already has happened in Ireland.
That's what I'm saying, and it's been denied. We've heard nothing about this guy. We've heard nothing about the guy who done this. Nothing.
You mean the Irish case?
Yeah.
Well, that's the way the Irish legal system works, Tony. You won't hear anything about it until he goes to court.
Okay,
that's just the way the system works.
The government is being warned, and this is a warning to this, or is it?
But you're making an assumption in relation to the case in the UK, and we don't have all the details in it either. Okay, people are making assumptions in relation to it. Okay.
Well, if it is, in the hypothetical situation, say, okay.
Yeah.
And if this does happen in Ireland, and if it is an illegal immigrant, is anyone going to be held accountable? Is Roderick O'Gorman?
Well, I would like to think the people who make decisions are held accountable to the extent that it has to be changed. But I don't want to focus on that aspect of it because that would be easy for me to do for an hour and a half, Tony. Okay, so let's focus on what I'm talking about, which is many people online have said for crimes like this, the death penalty should be brought back. Do you believe the death penalty?
100%. Yes, definitely. But a slow death, a very, very slow death, a very, very slow death. Yeah. I'd love to see him being put into a room for half an hour with mothers. I don't mean the mothers of the poor children, they wouldn't be capable, but mothers, and let's see the anger that he's caused. Because the deprivation of that crime is beyond humanity. Now, and another thing I would say is, for the immigrants, if it is, just like if it is true, hypothetical situation again, the whole family should be rounded up, an extended family.
Why?
And deported out of the country as a deterrent.
But the rest of the family haven't done anything wrong. It's him.
That they'll bring their children up to say, do not ever do anything like this.
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
No,
Why not?
Unless somebody has whatever religion they happens to be radicalised by their own family, well, then I would think about, obviously you would have to have cautions and warnings and you'd have to investigate that. But I again, you're speculating. Okay, so
I'm on about the whole family, the extended family.
I don't necessarily agree with that because I know people, for example, Tony, who are good people, good parents. They might have 4 kids. 3 of the kids are excellent in college, doing well, and one of the kids is a little bollocks. So what I'm saying is,
God forbidden all harm.
Yeah.
But God forbidden all harm. It's just like Puskas. He murdered that beautiful young girl. She was a school teacher. He had arrived here, and therefore had to stood up in the halls. This man has been here for 10 years paying taxes. Complete lies. He never worked.
He didn't work.
Our government will cover up for them.
No, and by the way, the likes of Joseph Puskas should stay in jail for the rest of his life. He should never be released.
What will happen if that situation, God forbid all harm, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, if that situation happened here, we would have NGOs and government ministers queuing up to make excuses for them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying
human
about the whole family. That's what I'm saying about the whole family needs to be rounded up, house taken off them, off any wealth, get out of this country.
Yeah, well, again, as I say to you, you can't make loads of people responsible for the actions of one, unless other people within our other family members are radicalised or people have been radicalising the individual, if that was the case, but I don't know if that's the case.
Found someone in the family who did radicalise them.
Okay, but we're making lots of assumptions. Let's just stick to the conversation. The conversation is about the death penalty and the pros and cons of the death penalty.
From where they say they are, they shouldn't have been.
But
that was preventable. If the parents hadn't been allowed into that country, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, but you're making suggestions there. We don't even know who the person is yet because that's not official. That's just stories on Twitter. And by the way, I seen stories on Twitter yesterday that turned out to be completely false.
All right, no, I'm going to make a factual one to you. But just like if Joseph Puskas hadn't been here,
yeah, it wouldn't have happened. You're right. And Joseph Puskas shouldn't have been here, by the way, because even under EU law, for example, if you come to Ireland, you cannot sit on your hole on the dole. It's part of the regulations in relation to the free movement of people. You can't sit in your hole and claim the dole for 10 years. So he shouldn't have been in Ireland. You're right.
Do you know what needs to be done as well, Niall?
But again, we're completely moving off the topic and I have no reason understanding why. We're talking about the death penalty. Tony, do you agree with the death penalty? Do you agree with it?
No, for paedophiles and people like him, yes. For people who rob things, no.
Okay.
And you know what, Niall?
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is there needs to be a prison built in Ireland for murderers and paedophiles. Fuck them all in together. And when you're a murderer...
there is a prison for pedos. They all go to, where's it, Shelton Abbey, isn't it?
Yeah, Wheatfield, isn't it? I think Wheatfield.
No, Wheatfield is Shelton Abbey or somewhere. Well, yeah.
No, Shelton Abbey is an open prison.
Okay.
But, it's Wheatfield. But what should happen is, when you commit those crimes, you're put into a cell like Alcatraz. That's what should be done. Because I don't like the fact that murderers and paedophiles are there sitting on their arses watching Sky Sports and watching the Olympics and sitting down and getting their food, and no, they should be felt horrible.
So take away all their liberties. All their liberties. So, Andrew, stay with me for a second, because sorry, I want to go to Eric as well. Eric, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall. Thanks for having me. I'm good. Just listening in there, and my point of view on this is capital punishment should be brought back. And I think everybody here, they're talking about prison, they're talking about the feelings of the perpetrator of the crime and how he should be treated. Well, the real social justice in capital punishment is it should be mandatory for a crime like that, and it should be a swift punishment, because the amount of money that would be pumped into trying to rehabilitate that individual could be better served than actually with the services, bereavement services for the families that have lost the loved ones, and also to put something in place for a social justice that they can identify people like this and stop it happening in the future. So, we're talking about prison. We're talking about sending these guys to prison. These guys, he's murdered 3 kids. He's potentially murdered more. You cannot rehabilitate that. It's impossible. Best thing for that is get rid of that from our society, and whatever resources we're going to be put into rehabilitating that unrehabilitated person should be put back into the families of the victims. Money doesn't solve everything.
But I mean, currently at the moment it costs 93,000 per prisoner in Ireland per year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you imagine the amount of money? Go on, sorry.
Well,
Can you imagine the amount of money that would be pumped into the hospitals, into healthcare, into old age pensioners, into schools? Like that's one prisoner. Can you imagine if all the murderers were gone? Can you imagine if all the paedophiles were gone? How much is this country be booming?
So which crimes, Eric, would you reserve the death penalty for?
Well, I would reserve the death penalty for the likes of rape, paedophilia, and I would reserve
rape?
For
that's an interesting one. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone that rapes a woman, they should not be in society. They should be taken out as quick as anybody else, because it's a disgusting crime.
It is. No, there's no doubt it's a disgusting crime, but does it warrant the death penalty?
The knock-on effect of that, how many women, and even men that have been raped and then...
Absolutely. I understand for the victim.
Their own lives.
Yeah, no, I understand for the victim it's a life sentence. I get that.
Yeah, but they take their lives, Niall, and these rapists come back out of jail and they go back into society and they are left doing this again.
Okay, so you believe, for rape, murder, not manslaughter, obviously, I'm assuming you wouldn't include that.
I would be thinking... on murder, if there's crimes of passion, some things can happen in the heat of a moment. But if you're somebody that's going and targeting multiple people to stab him, to kill him, that's a death penalty. That's not a crime of passion. That's just not a spur of the moment. That's a premeditated thought, whether you want to claim mental illness or not. You've actively gone out to harm more than one person to take their lives. So.
Well, okay, do me a favour, Eric. I want you to stay with me, because I want to bring Carol on in a second, but I need to go to Tara first. She's waiting ages. Tara, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall, how are you? I agree in part with Ian O'Doherty, who said to you earlier about the death penalty being too good for some offenders, and that 23 hours a day in a cell on their own is far more severe punishment. I agree with that, and maybe I'm sadistic, but I believe a prolonged torture and a slow death over years is more effective than a quick death.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not trying to go off topic here, but it's a very real concern with regard to the courts and capital punishment. I would not want to see the death penalty being brought into Ireland or Europe as an option, because if a case is being ruled by a judge of the Islamic faith, how can we know that their sentencing of a person to death is because of the offence and not because of the offender's religion, atheism, sexuality, if a man has an effeminate look? And it's a very legitimate risk, because the Quran contains verses that say those who don't follow Islam should be killed, and those who are, and I quote, men guilty of lewdness together demands unspecified punishment. And likewise, there's the opposite to consider. If an Islamic extremist, God forbid, bombs a stadium because the performer has a risque image and represents everything Islam stands against, that bomber would absolutely deserve the death penalty. But an Islamic judge might be sympathetic and say no. Now, I know what you're saying.
Well, you're talking about Sharia law, of course, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I know what you're saying. You were saying earlier that the death penalty should be reserved for the most heinous of crimes, and I agree with that. But there's issues in that. You and I are speaking logically, but logic hasn't ever been a frequent bedfellow of any Irish government or of certain judges in Ireland either, I might add. They won't make that law strict if they were to bring in capital punishment. And secondly, what's heinous to us may not be heinous to a person of the Islamic faith, and vice versa. So that all needs to be considered. it's too open-ended to say, oh yeah, let's bring in capital punishment for the most heinous crimes. Everything would need to be defined to the letter to make it as strict as possible.
So your problem is, depending on the judge, who the judge is, what their faith happens to be, or what their religion or what their sexual preference or whatever it happens to be, it's open to interpretation, it's open to human error, it's open to human emotions, it's open to human feelings. In other words, that people can be biased.
I'm not trying to target Islamic, but it's just they're so extreme and they follow the Quran to the letter. So that's why I would be more concerned about Islamic judges than I am about Catholic judges. They don't tend to follow the Bible to the letter and say, well, there's homosexuality involved here and that's against the Bible. They're not that radicalized, they're not that extreme, but Islam is. And that's
it can be. It depends on, who the Muslim is, because different Muslims have different interpretations of the Quran.
Yeah.
And different sects have different interpretations.
It's a very real risk, and that's why I would be against it. Unless it's defined extremely well, I would be against it being an option.
What do you think of the principle behind the death penalty? For example, in the United States, which is only one of the only Western countries that still has the death penalty in 27 states, at the moment, as I mentioned earlier on there's over 3,000 people on death row. I mean, the principle behind the idea of the death penalty, it doesn't look like it served any purpose, because if you look at the statistics for the states in America that have the death penalty, murder rates aren't any lower. In fact, actually, they're quite high. So
true,
it does make a difference.
At the same time, how do we know they wouldn't be higher if it didn't exist? How do we know that there's some people that think, well, you know what, I would kill such and such, but there's the risk of the death penalty being given to me, so that's the only reason I wouldn't. Unless everyone has been interviewed and answered honestly and said, yeah, the death penalty has put me off murdering such and such that time. I don't think we can safely say it hasn't worked. There's always, I know it hasn't wiped out crime, but at the same time, it may have acted as a deterrent in some cases. We don't know that, because no one's going to stand up and say, yeah, I actually was tempted to kill my neighbour.
Yeah, but I decided not to. I decided not to. I just injure her instead. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do, now I have to say, and again, maybe I'm being sadistic, but I like the fact that when you're with the death penalty in America, you're not told when it's going to happen. So you could be 17, 18 years on death row, and you don't know. Every morning you wake up, you don't know if that's going to be the day. I like the idea of what your earlier caller was saying as well about an Alcatraz-style prison, that you're put into a tiny cell, and I think that is a more severe punishment. But I also do think that if it should be the responsibility of the country that you were born in to cover the costs. I don't think the country that you committed the crime in should be covering the costs.
Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, well, stay there for a second, Tara. Let me go to Carl Dieter. Carl, hi, how are you?
Hey, how you getting on, Niall? Well,
good. You heard what Tara said there. The problem is, the courts are open to interpretation, they're open to bias, they're open to all sorts of, human error, when it comes to sentencing people. So for that reason, maybe it's not such a good idea, because different judges will have different interpretations of why you should be sentenced to death or not.
Yeah, and that's true. Say even in Christianity, people have, say, a marital affair. And, people say, yeah, that's a bad thing, But in Islam, if you're married and you have an affair, the actual prescribed punishment for that is to die. It's not like a kind of a, forgive and forget, turn the other cheek. So I think you have to say to yourself, what kind of nation do you want to become? Do you want to become a nation that espouses those types of outcomes, where you start off with a death penalty only for horrific crimes, and then it could expand, so you get this increasing bullseye effect? Or you could say to yourself, well, here's another approach. Why does it cost $93,000 to keep someone locked up? That, to me, seems excessive, because what you're saying...
Well, it's not, no. You have to take into consideration the building, the heat, the light, the staff, all of that, the food,
what I know from running a family is it doesn't cost $93,000 to keep a child, for instance. So what kind of...
Yeah, but you're not keeping the child locked up. There's a bit of a difference.
No, but I'll put it this way. The building is already there. The bars are already there. The cells are already there. So I think we have to be saying to ourselves, look, we should look to get that cost down. Now, one of the ways you could reduce that cost is by people paying back to society. So I think I would have chain gangs tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I would have people doing labour tomorrow. If you don't do it, you're on bare rations. I wouldn't have people having much freedom throughout the day at all. I wouldn't be giving them anything unless it's earned with behaviour, so that we have a lower recidivity rate, because our recidivity rate is massive. And I would have large prisons with full terms. Something that people seem to forget, and this is particular to Ireland, is that something like 2/3 of the murders committed in this country, I'll have to check that figure, but I think it's around that, are done by people who are on probation. are done by people with 50 offences. Now, how do you get up to having 50 criminal convictions?
So there was one lad who committed assault down the country there, and I think he had 170 something previous convictions.
Yeah, but he should never be free again. That is someone who you.
But how do you how can you get 173 previous convictions, be only 35 or 40 years of age, and have 173 previous convictions? Surely you're in jail.
As we well know, because of the way that the policing in this country works.
But getting back to
that, you've committed 7,000 crimes or something.
Getting back to the death penalty.
I would have super prisons, hard labour. And I would give people, I'd say, look, while you're in prison, we'll give you the right to opt for the self-euthanization, but, we're not going to stoop to the level of what you are.
Okay, but this guy that committed this crime, now obviously he has to go to trial and everything else, and he has to be questioned by police. We don't know exactly who it is yet. It's a 17-year-old, from what we're aware, who walks into, a play school or this kind of little acting school and slaughters children, indiscriminately, and 2 adults as well. I mean... Do you believe people like that deserve to live? Do they deserve the death penalty?
You see, I suppose there's my personal opinion, and then there's where I think we should be as a society. My personal opinion is that if you would let me bring him up to the mountains, he would never come down from the mountains. That is my personal view. I would happily, if someone said, you can shoot him, here's the bullet, and we're not going to try you, you'll be innocent, but you're able to shoot him if you want. I would look at him like the way I'd shoot a rat. I wouldn't even think about it. Not even human to me at that point. But as a society, I think if we start to kill other people, we start down a dangerous path. And it's a path that I think leads us as a society backwards. I think we need to be tougher on crime. We need to be quicker within the process of courts. We need to have a real mature conversation. Because this guy, by the way, is an extreme case. Your average person who's killing people is either in a relationship with the person that they kill, which is one group, and the other is people who for a long, long time are heading down deeper and deeper criminality. And I think that certainly with those who represent the vast majority of serious crimes, that they can be approached differently. And we need to get hard on them sooner. And if you get sentenced to 10 years in prison, you serve every day of 10 years, every day of it. And,
I've never agreed with this getting time off for good behaviour. You're meant to be well behaved. You should add time on for bad behaviour. Actually, stay there, Carl, because I want to go to Maureen as well. Maureen, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall, how are you?
There you go. Carl doesn't agree with the death penalty. Well, he agrees personally with it. He would actually do it himself, but he doesn't agree from a societal point of view in the death penalty because it basically makes us the killers.
Yeah, well, I suppose as far and against it, look, I would be for it. When you have somebody banged to rights, just like this piece of shit, I would personally keyhole the bastard.
You would keyhole him or keyhaul him?
Keyhole him, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they used to do under the ship.
Yeah. Well, one end to the other. And if he survived the first attempt, well, off you go again. I just let his lungs fill with water at this point. The like of him, he's nothing but evil in my eyes.
What would it achieve? If we publicly hung him in the middle of Trafalgar Square, for example, in London, what would it achieve?
Well, it would achieve. Look, you got one piece of evil shit removed from the planet. That's my point. They don't deserve to breathe any more air because he took the life of 3 little children who had their whole life ahead of them. And why should he be put into any prison or anywhere else to breathe when he removed that from little children? I wouldn't even give that bastard a trial.
Will you have to give him a trial?
Personally,
you have to give him.
Niall, I wouldn't.
Well, now, if we're going to start, killing people with no trial whatsoever, now we're heading down a real rocky road, Maureen.
I know, but that is my personal opinion. You see, people get so fired up about it. It was so upsetting yesterday evening. I sat here this morning, I cried my eyes out for those children. You see, this is how it's affecting us as a society.
Imagine all the horrible things that happen in the world, and then these children who, granted, there's wars, there's things that happen, there's volcanoes, there's all sorts of terrible things, and it kills innocent children, and how much that hurts. And then to think that this is even worse, because that guy went in and took those lives. Mm-hmm. He took those lives of innocent kids and did it again and again and stabbed multiple people again and again. But the problem is that rage, it sets a precedent of allowing yourself to become like the person that you say you hate. And it's that reason.
Imagine the scene. I'm thinking of what Maureen said there. Imagine the scene. 11 people all together, right? including the 3 that were dead. There's 9 other critical, and then there's 2 adults critical too. 9 other children and 2 adults critical. Okay, I think 7 of those children are critical, by the way, at the moment. But imagine the scene to be able to get around that many people. I believe he had a machete. Some people are saying a knife, but I believe it was a machete. To do that and to continuously do that, you would have to be manic, absolutely manic. You know what I mean?
And imagine the terror and the fear that those kids experienced.
And even the kids that weren't hit. Imagine those. There was a guy actually was on Twitter there yesterday. He said he collected his 2 children from that place yesterday. He had dropped them off yesterday morning. He was, and then when he heard it, he went straight there, collected his 2 kids.
And you want them to learn dancing, and then they get attacked.
But thankfully his kids weren't hit. But he said his kids are hysterical. They're hysterical. He has to bring them to see somebody.
My personal view, I would happily throw that man down a well head first and laugh as he dies. That's the level of hatred I have for people who do that kind of thing. However, I think as a society, it is not a good idea to let those passions take over our judgment. And that is why he should be sent to a small cell, let out for an hour a day. And if you want out for more than an hour a day, you're doing hard labor every day. And let's, force a repayment over the course of his life to society.
I mean, Maureen, the children that died, from what we know so far, were 6, 7 and 9 years of age. All the kids that were there were between 3 and 10.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to it yesterday evening or last night on GB News, and when the report was coming out, it was absolutely horrific. Do you know something? I'm at the point now, I even dread me going online later today because I'm afraid I'm going to hear another little child or maybe one of the adults has died. It's too upsetting.
Well, there has been one more, as I said, in the last hour.
I know. I heard you saying that. Yeah, it's just too upsetting. But I think, you see, our society, we've become too complacent. We're seeing the same thing happening in our own countries with people, and they're not naming people, and they'll get life and they're out again maybe after 20 years, whatever the case is, and live out the rest of their lives. While the person's life they took, they're lying lifeless in a grave somewhere.
Okay, thank you for that, Maureen. Let me just go to Connie. Connie, hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you fine.
I agree with a lot of what people, Maureen, and the other man. I would think it'd be good to come down head first, that guy. But to be honest, that's not the point. I would say, though, it's evil what he's done, and he probably used a machete. How else could he do it so fast? The thing is, you can't acknowledge hate with hate. We have to. One thing that really annoys me, Niall, is life should be life, number one. And if they ever get out, they should be tagged, every one of them. And they shouldn't be allowed to do anything else again, because a lot of them are on probation and they're doing more harm. They should be in a small cell. Taking away their freedom is actually worse, because if they are going to be given the death penalty, taking away someone's freedom for the rest of their life, and hard labour, and, no luxuries. Like, we're too easy here in this country with prisons, It's like, and we need to get harder on crime here, because, and I'm not just saying here, but in Europe in general. I don't agree with the death penalty, because I believe that the greatest I am in the sky, God, should take life and take it away. But for the ones that really, really do perpetrate really evil, like that guy yesterday, I don't know, hell is too good for them, but it's not up to us at the end of the day. But, should be made an example of, certainly. And I hope that the trial, and he should be named and shamed. And, I hope this sets a precedent for the rest of them, of his ilk.
Mm-hmm. But here's the problem, right? He will be trialed most likely in Britain. What they'll do is, although he's allegedly a minor because he's 17, right? Which I think is bullshit. Well, I'm looking in the papers saying it says, a 17-year-old child has been arrested. Stop using the word child. He's practically a man, right? Okay, so he's 17. He's 17. So here's the thing. He'll be trialed as an adult, pardon me, as with the killers of Jamie Bulger. The maximum he's probably going to get in Britain, as far as I know, the maximum sentence is 25 years.
But he went wrong anyway.
Yeah, but so he'd be back out of jail by the time, at the very most, he'd be 50 years of age. He'd be out of jail, at the very most.
He'd do more harm then. Well, everyone that comes out of prison, if they kill somebody especially, every one of them should be tagged for the rest of their life. They shouldn't be around, go near anybody. It's wrong. Look at the level of crime. How crime has got worse and worse. there's no fear anymore. But I don't agree with killing them. Well, maybe put them on a mountain, and leave them rot there. But I mean, that's
put them out with Carl Dieter.
No,
Put them out with Carl for a while. Yeah. I mean, Carl, this, absolute sicko will get out of jail at some point in his life.
Yeah, that's what pisses me off now. That's God. I mean, that's wrong. I mean, if I was the mother of those children today, I probably would want to go and shoot him, yes. But that's not going to achieve anything, is it?
Yes, hi, Carl. Go ahead.
There's two things about this. One is that I would advocate for large prisons with far fewer amenities, so you don't go in and spend 93,000 on someone a year to keep them locked up.
Yeah.
I would encourage absolute labour every day to earn everything that you eat, earn your way into a society that you can, say that one day you can be part of. I think that life should at least mean at least 20 years without parole. I think that if you use weapons to commit a crime, that we should have mandatory sentencing, and you will serve every day, no matter how good behaved you are. And that, as terrible as it is, when this 17-year-old is aged 60, maybe at that stage, he should be able to taste freedom again. I don't know, but
you think
it's. I don't know. It's not an easy one for me to answer.
Why is that not an easy one for you to answer? I personally don't believe he should never see freedom, ever.
You see, but after 43 years and your entire life gone, at that stage, what is there left to take? Like, are you saying no freedom at that stage because it makes you feel good, or because you believe it's what's right?
For the sake of the victims. I never ever want the mothers and fathers of those 6, 7, and 9-year-olds, or any other child that sadly might pass away or be critically injured by this and have life-changing experience because of this. I never want to see them have to meet this man walking down the road at any point in their life.
Should he be free at age 80?
No.
All right. Well, then you're saying if you're going to die definitely in prison, well, then that gets back to having the right to self-euthanize. Maybe say to people, look, you have a choice. You're going to go to jail until the day you die.
Personally speaking, no, I'd like to keep him alive to make him suffer. I think I think they need to suffer.
Well, look, that's this is the weird thing though as well. This is a bad case to talk about it with because it's so emotive. But I think there are people who do terrible things and they are actually capable of coming back. And I do, and you do see that there's people who go to prison. They kill someone, they run over them when they're drink driving, doing something stupid.
That's different.
Terrible. Well, yes, it's different. But what I'm saying is, but you can't use this.
People make mistakes. People make bad decisions in their lives. Getting into a car when you're pissed out of your head and then mowing somebody down. That was a bad decision you made and it cost somebody's life. Yes, you should go to jail. But you shouldn't go to jail for the rest of your life. Yeah, you deserve a second chance in situations like crimes of passion,
the highly
whatever.
Traditional, an eye for an eye, a life for a life. That's where we used to be. And what I'm saying is I'm not sure I agree with that. And that in an example, that this is not a good example to say how you run your penal system. But I definitely think we need big prisons where you don't get out because of overcrowding. That that if you get 20 years, you serve 20 years. That you should repay your debt to society, and that doesn't mean give up your time. Anybody can sit in a room just while away the hours. I'm saying that you're made to work, and that if you don't work, you don't get decent treatment.
Okay, well, hang on, stay there, Carl Dieter, because I want to go to. I have to go to Lorenzo. Sorry, I do apologise. Lorenzo, hi. How are you?
Fine, Niall.
Okay, you don't think death penalty would solve a problem?
Not good. Sorry?
You don't think the death penalty would solve a problem?
I don't think that death penalty would solve the problems. In terms of, as we all know, and that's the same thing that we might use as parents with kids, is that it's not the severity of the punishment, but the duration of the punishment that breaks somebody. So it's technically, it's worse when it was worse when my mother was saying, you don't go out for a month instead of no computer tonight, these type of things. So the length of the punishment is worse than the severity or the heavy of how heavy the punishment is.
Yeah, in other words, having your liberty taken away.
The death penalty would be 2 seconds. Finished.
Yeah.
While he has to basically rot in a cell big as him. Not bigger, like.
I think we would all appreciate that a bit better if we had decent sentencing in Ireland, whereby you could actually sentence somebody to jail, similar to in America, for the rest of your natural life. But we don't have those sentences. So I think people would agree with you, Lorenzo, in those situations.
Yeah, but that's the problem in Italy as well. In Italy, it's the same in terms of the punishment is towards what happened, not the severity. So most likely this guy will be judged for manslaughter. It doesn't matter how many kids he killed.
No, I don't know. I'd like to think the Crown Prosecution Service will charge him with murder because it's premeditated.
Well, but I don't think they will apply, if it's, 20 years per victim. It's not that they're multiplied 20 by 2, by 3, by 4,
No, it's concurrent. No, they're concurrent,
20 plus 5, 6, 10, and then, there will be a reduction and these type of things. And that's something that should not happen. I mean, in this case, there should be 20 for 1, 20 for 2, 6, then 60, then you're 80, you're 100 years. You will never see the light. You will never see fresh air again. The problem even that I see is not to find a conspiracy as well. It is obviously if you start to try to think about why it happened, what pushed him to do it, I would be scared and afraid of thinking that is for the faith. But
I do believe, now somebody did say yesterday, and John McGurk replied to them yesterday on Twitter, wanting to know why people were concerned about his culture or religion or whatever. And they said it was irrelevant. John McGurk responded by saying, of course it's relevant. And it is relevant. Because it's important that we understand why somebody would commit a crime like that.
Yeah, but sometimes, we had proofs that many times teenagers or young people are doing crazy, stupid, dangerous, and illegal things. They do them because they posted on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or whatever. So I would be scared to then know that when he comes to say it's like, because they wanted clickbait and they want people to know myself. That would be crazy. Because it happened recently in Italy that the two brothers got arrested because they beat to death a guy for no reasons. They went in jail and then they said, now I'm famous.
Yeah.
Now I'm famous. And one of those guys, the silly thing is that one of those guys got married in the jail because a girl saw him and said, I love him, I want to marry him. And they allowed him to marry. So then when he will come out, because he will come out around when he's going to be 40, 45, at least I have a family to wait for me. That's crazy.
I often wonder about those women, by the way, who fall in love with lifers or fall in love with people who are in jail for 20 or 30 years. Or these guys who are on death row who have like a fan club, which are primarily women, by the way. I often wonder about those women and what that's all about. Thank you for that, Lorenzo. Sorry, I've got to get through very, very quickly to people. Thank you, I appreciate it. Let me go to Carl. Carl, hi, how are you?
Niall, how are you? I'll put it down. Basically, if you go out with a knife, you're going out with intent to hurt somebody.
It's murder.
It's as simple as that. If you're caught with a knife, you should be charged with attempted murder. Doesn't make a difference. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you a real quick story. A friend of mine, his nephew, was stabbed in the head with a screwdriver last week in Talbot Street.
Oh, God.
Now, he's all right, thank God, but they had to remove part of a skull cap to ease the swelling on the brain and that. But whoever, they have video footage of it, they know exactly who it is, and they're going to be charged with attempted murder. Good enough for them, throw away the key.
No, I mean, if you stick a knife in somebody, your intention is to kill them. You don't stick a knife in somebody with the intention of maybe making them bleed a little bit or cutting them. You stick a knife in somebody with the intention of killing them. That's the purpose of you doing something like that. In relation to the death penalty, by the way, Carl, do you believe in the death penalty? In certain crimes, not in every single murder crime, but in certain crimes.
Not in every crime, no, but bring it back. We had it over here for capital punishment.
Yeah.
If you murder somebody, the death penalty you should carry that sentence. That's it, done and dusted.
For every murder, or only certain types of murders like this one, which would be mass murder, or ones that would be very heinous type of crimes, or would you have it for every murder?
Right, I wouldn't have it for every murder. No, some murders, some people don't go out intent to kill somebody, it happens. Mistakenly, it happens. It could be a one-punch hit. You end up killing the guy. He hits his head off the ground. Okay, he didn't go.
That's manslaughter anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's manslaughter, right? But the likes of, if you carry a knife out and once you pull a knife out of your pocket to use it, you should be charged with attempted murder. That's the bottom line. That's how I feel about it. The Irish people are gassed. They say it costs us too much to hold these people in prison for so long over stupid crimes. Now, they should be let out after a certain amount of time. And yet, when they're saying bring back the death penalty, no, keep them in prison for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, we're kind of hypocrites. Yeah. I mean, look, it's a shocking story that's affected everybody because we all think it could be our children, and these are horrible stories, But I know.
Don't get me wrong, though. I carry a knife with me because I do hunting.
Yeah.
But as soon as I come out of the field, that knife was locked away in the safe in the car. I can't bring it with me because I can be done for it.
Well, it is illegal. It's under the Firearms Act. It's illegal.
It's illegal. Yeah.
But people, by the way, a lot of people don't realise that you're not allowed to carry a knife unless you have a professional reason to carry a knife. I know plumbers or electricians might have to have a particular type of knife or stripping wires, but it has to be for professional reasons. It must be kept in your toolbox, not in your pocket.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it cannot be accessible to people in your car either.
No.
That's another law that must be locked in the boot of your car where you cannot gain access to it quickly or rapidly.
Carl, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Let me go to Jackie. Jackie, hi. How are you?
Yeah, isn't it shocking? And it's, yes, you'd be stuck for words on that one.
It's horrendous. Horrendous. Yeah, I know. And as you say, you think of your own kids. Yeah. Yeah. It's. Yeah, I mean, there's no way of understanding why somebody would do something like this, No, there's no way of understanding it. But here's the thing. They did it. They have him. He's 17. I mean, if you had a situation hypothetically like that here or anywhere else in Europe, do you believe that we should have a death penalty for certain crimes?
I was always kind of neutral because, you see so many documentaries about people going back through the years that were executed or whatever, and they were innocent.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, that is just so wrong and horrendous as well. But something like this would definitely push you over to that side of saying, yeah, maybe we do need to bring it back.
You'd almost want to do it yourself, wouldn't you?
God, yeah. I'm afraid to say I would.
Yeah, you'd pull the lever.
I would, because the thing is that guy should never be let into society, never be let out. I mean, how does someone like that reform?
I don't. I personally don't believe you could reform somebody like that. You could never reform somebody like that.
But again, what would make someone go out and intentionally do that? I mean, is it religion?
Hatred. Well, we don't know yet. We don't know what the motive. But hatred has to be the main element of it. Hatred of something, I don't know, but it's hatred.
And then the media to make out that it was an English guy. It was someone very close to the area that lived very close to the area that.
Originally from Cardiff, I believe, in Wales. Yeah, and then moved to Southport.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you look at some of the stuff, the writing that was going on here, and all the names and everything being given out and addresses, and then when something like this, an asylum or someone who has come into the country cannot be named, it's.
Well, again, we're only speculating. We don't understand fully the details in relation to this particular case, but we do. The only thing we do know for sure that the only thing they've confirmed is he's 17 years of age. And as I said, it does keep annoying me every time I read a news article and it says a 17-year-old child was arrested. Why did child 17? He's a man. Get over yourselves.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's not stupid at 17 years of age. He's not a child. Stop. If he was 13, I'd understand you calling him a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's like your last caller was saying there, that anyone who's carrying a knife, I mean, that straight away, they should be locked up.
Well, if you take a knife out to somebody, you should be charged with attempted murder, because if you're intending to use a knife, unless it's in self-defense or something like that, which I doubt very much, you should be charged with attempted murder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you don't stick a knife in somebody to wound them. You know.
No.
All right, Jackie, thank you for that. Let me go to Morris finally on this. Morris, hi, how are you doing? You're a last.
Niall, how are you?
I'll
be talking to you. I'm last today, am I?
You're last today, last caller.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been a good programme, and people are right to air their grievances and let people know how to stand them. But being a grandfather myself, I got a video sent to me yesterday of my 3 grandchildren in my daughter's back garden in a field playing. And then I'm thinking about what horrors that came out, and I'm thinking, what if some guy just jumped over the fence and stabbed the 3 of them to death in the pool? You know, that's what went on yesterday. Those kids got up, had their breakfast, hugs off their parents, were brought out to have a beautiful day, and then the parents had to go and pick them up or get their bodies out of a morgue. That's a living nightmare.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
That's a living nightmare. You know, they're the most innocent of innocents that we have in this world. They're children, and their job is to protect them. And I just think of the horrors of Dunblane. Dunblane is so many years ago now. Those children executed in a gym by a lunatic with a gun. And then we have young men going around stabbing children to death. And we're probably going to lose more. All I can do is say, we have a death sentence here as such. If you kill a guard, you're given the death sentence, but it's commuted to 40 years. And I think that should be extended to child killers. 40 years.
I don't think 40 years is good enough. I don't. That means he get out of jail when he's 67. I don't. Think, Morris, what you're saying. Think what you're saying.
Yeah. 40 years for every life that he took. So he never get out. Yeah, 40 years for every child that does. He has 40, 80. There's 120 years there already.
But hang on, go back to your original story. Fella jumps over the wall. If that was even one of your grandchildren, one of them, you would never want him to see the light of day again.
Oh, I understand. Listen, I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is we can't do... Our laws are being dictated to us by Europe, as you said. If we want the death penalty back here, we're going to have to
leave the European Union. Yeah.
But if you killed a guard tomorrow, you would get a mandatory death sentence, and it would be commuted to life in prison or 40 years. So for every life you take, you get 40 years. But at the end of the day, I think the best thing that can happen to this individual, me being a father and a grandfather, somebody will meet him in prison and he'll get into a fight and he won't make it out of it. That's justice. So where you're sent.
I hope so. I hope the individual responsible goes to jail and meets a few nice people in prison. Yeah.
Exactly. Listen, and one thing I'd say to you, because I know you have a good bunch of listeners on your shows, on the podcast, say a prayer for the families of the children. Just say a prayer for them. All right?
Yeah. Thanks, Morris. Thanks for that.
God bless, man. Thanks.
Okay, just some of your WhatsApp messages, by the way, coming in here. I'll have to get him to producer just to turn that up for me there if he possibly can. All right. Let me see. Actually, no, I'll leave that till after that. I'll leave it later on. I've got some more messages here. Somebody says, no, the death penalty is not the answer. It's inhumane. There is too much collateral damage and heartbreak to innocent victims within the person's own family. Another person says, the nation state should never take a life for justice or for assisted dying. But for the more horrific crimes where guilt is indisputable, families should not be prosecuted for taking matters into their own hands. In other words, if I go out and kill somebody for killing my child, I shouldn't be prosecuted for it. Well, you couldn't really. That'd be kind of lawless society where we all basically take the law into our own hands. I don't think you could advocate that. How about proactive and not reactive policing being brought back instead? I'm for the death penalty, but stopping the perps without fearing the leftist lawyers would be a step in the right direction. Owen says, in cases of absolute certainty, yes. Kennedy says, open borders, unvetted, unchecking, allowing criminals into the country. This was allowed to happen. All in government need to be arrested. Well, you don't know that yet. They haven't released the information in relation to that. Don't believe everything you read on Twitter, by the way, because the first reaction on Twitter yesterday that I saw was, oh, this lad only arrived in Britain last year by boat. That's not true. Turns out that's not true at all. But that was all over Twitter yesterday. So what I'm saying is, don't believe everything you read on Facebook, on Twitter, because it's not always true. We will reserve judgment in relation to his culture, his religion, or where he's from when the police release that kind of information. or indeed if he is just British. At the moment, all they're saying is we can confirm the 17-year-old male is from Banks, which is just around the corner from where the stabbing happened. At this stage, inquiries are ongoing to establish the motive for the tragic incident. Now, if the motive is what people speculate it is, we all know what that motive is. It is something that has to be taken very seriously. Because people yesterday were online, and I noticed one or two people turned around, and they said, why are you racists trying to find out where he's from or what religion he is? It's irrelevant, you bunch of racists. You know, it's not irrelevant. It's actually extremely relevant. It's like in Ireland, we don't actually keep statistics in relation to nationality or religion when it comes to crime. We should. Because it's important why we understand, or that we understand why people commit crimes, particularly very serious crimes. So, for example, if there's a motive behind killings like this, heinous, horrible crimes like this, we want to make sure that motive is rid of and it never happens again. We can't do that if we're not willing to have grown-up conversations without being called a racist. There are clearly people in this world that are motivated by culture or by religion. Some people are extremists and they're radicalised. That doesn't mean that every Christian is a bad person, every Muslim is a bad person. It doesn't mean that Islam is particularly bad. But there are people, and a minority within Islam, who are radicalised. There are people within Christianity who are radicalised. So what I'm saying to you is, if there are people who are radicalised, we need to understand what it is, or how they're becoming radicalised, and what they're actually doing and why they're doing it. So we can stop them and it never happens again. That's what we need to do. So the idea of people saying it's not important what he is, it is important. It's really important. And it's really important that we condemn that part of whatever culture it is. If indeed that is part of a culture that he's been radicalised into, well, then it's important that we all condemn that. And we don't hide behind it. And we don't accept this nonsense from the NGOs that we're all a bunch of racists. We're not. Unfortunately, cultural issues happen all over the world. There are very few examples of multiculturalism working in the world. Don't believe what the left will tell you. There are very few examples of it working. Sadly. It's sad that people just can't live together and have different cultures. But when you think about it logically, if people have different cultures that basically, you know, are polar opposite to somebody else who might have a different culture, you understand why that can't work. It just doesn't work. So in most countries in the world where you've got a lot of cultures, you are going to have problems. That's something we have to accept because we live in a world now where people are moving around freely. But we do have a duty, and many people have said it today in relation to what's going on in this country and leaving what happened in England and that horrible crime aside, we do have a duty to protect our borders. I was condemned in RT for saying that. I don't regret saying it. I'll say it again. The government's duty foremost in this country is to protect the citizens of this country. That is their job, to protect the borders and protect the citizens. Remember when you go out and vote in the next general election, which is probably going to be the end of October, start of November, that they have failed in that duty. They have failed miserably to protect you and to protect our borders. They have basically given us an open border system where anybody can walk in. They'll deny that, by the way, but anybody can walk into Ireland. Doesn't matter where you're from, what your criminal background is, what papers you have, you can come into Ireland. We seen that yesterday. There was a video put up online yesterday of people coming in from Belfast Airport straight down by a taxi, straight to the iPass Centre. With no idea who they are, what their criminal background is. We know nothing about them. And they'll probably use false and fake names and everything else. And they'll re-identify. So what they do is, because we've no information on them and we've no way of getting information on them, they can make their own name. And they can re-identify. And eventually at some point, they'll be given the right to remain. They'll be given a whole new identification, new driver's license, new passport, and everything else under an assumed name. So they can essentially start their lives and reset their lives all over again here in Ireland. Doesn't matter what they've done in the past. That's what can happen. And we're allowing that to happen. People in this country who are in charge are allowing that to happen under your watch. That's all I'm saying. Your opportunities in November. Don't vote for them. Don't vote for them. But you will. Some of you will. You'll go out and vote for them anyway. You did during the European elections. I tried to tell you, but you just wouldn't listen. Many people still went out and voted for them. They're morons. They have no idea how to run a country. They don't care what you think. They're not listening to you. They just don't care. All you got to do is listen to them on RTA or TV3, Virgin Media. Listen to them. And listen to them waffling on about how you don't have a veto about who lives in your area and all that kind of carry on. Anyway, thank you to everybody who got involved in the show. We will update you again tomorrow in relation to that story, although I'm sure you'll be watching the news. It's a shocking, shocking story. And sadly, I predict the numbers will rise in relation to how many people will have died in that incident. And hopefully the individual responsible will never see the light of day again. As most people said, I think Carl Dieter summed it up. I wouldn't feel sorry for him if somebody dropped him on his head down a well. Head first. Anyway, thank you for getting involved in the show. Don't forget, please support the show. Donate if you can, or subscribe. Go to niallboylan.com. You can subscribe there. The price of a cup of coffee once a month, that's all it is. It's the end of the month now. We have to pay the bills. That's the hard part. We never have enough money to pay the bills. Never. We get some subscriptions, a few donations, but we do need your help. So please do support us. Just a $5 or a $10, whatever it is. It'll help to pay the bills at the end of the month, which is tomorrow. So please do subscribe or donate. Just a small amount of money. Or if you're very wealthy and you really like what we do and you believe you can help support us, we don't take advertising purposely because we don't want people controlling what we say. Please do support us. Just go onto our website and give us a donation. Anything you can, a $5 to $5 million, it doesn't matter. We will make sure we spend it on the show. It's the only place it'll get spent. We don't get paid. So please do it or subscribe. niallboylan.com. I shall talk to you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, have a great day.
The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Podcast. Listen live on Facebook, YouTube, and all the usual live stream services. To get in touch, just WhatsApp or text 085 100 2255. The Niall Boylan Podcast. They told me to shut up. Available for download from all your usual platforms.